Every moment, every breath, we thank Allah. The blessings of Ramadan, the blessings of Ramadan, the blessings of Ramadan, the blessings of Ramadan.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidil Mursaleen, amma ba'd fa'a'uzu billahi minash shaytanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Rasulallah, wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Habiballah. As-salatu wassalamu alayka ya Nabiyallah, wa ala alika wa ashabika ya Nurallah. My dear Islamic brothers and viewers of Madani Channel, there are many blessings of reciting Durood Pak upon the essence and the soul of our lives, the comfort and coolness of our eyes, the one in whom our hope of salvation lies, the one who journeyed through the seven skies, whose face is more beautiful than the sunrise, and who is the owner and distributor of paradise. Sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. Indeed, Akka sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam has stated in a beautiful hadith of Mubarakah that whoever recites salat upon me once, Allah Azza wa Jal sends 10 mercies upon him, forgives 10 sins, and elevates his ranks by 10 times. Subhanallah. Sallu ala al-Habib. Sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. My dear Islamic brothers and viewers of Madani Channel, this month of Ramadan Al-Mubarak, with all its great bounties and tremendous gifts, came with so many secrets, so many treasures, and so many blessings. And one of those blessings and treasures, and one of those intense training courses for us, was by way of the prayer. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, we heard how Akka sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam gave glad tidings to the ones who stand before Allah Azza wa Jal in prayer in this blessed month. How they were given the good news of forgiveness and great reward. In this way, the Taraweeh prayer is something really special. It is there for us to fall in love with standing in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal. It wasn't a burden. It wasn't there to cause us hardship or cause us grief. It was to bring you to the court of Allah Azza wa Jal, standing before the Creator Supreme, imagining the day of judgment and imagining that I am in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal. No doubt, standing in Taraweeh is difficult after a long fast, but the reward that one gains by this amazing act is beyond our comprehension. Not only is your book of deeds filled with so many good deeds and blessings, but also this act of standing in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal has many, many benefits. As well as having health benefits of good exercise and helping to release energy that you've had eaten after Iftar. As well as that, and the physical benefits that the doctors speak of, the spiritual benefits were amazing. You'd had a long day of fasting. In some parts of the northern hemisphere, you'd fasted for 16 hours. You had had the opportunity to barely eat a few morsels. And then you were commanded by Allah Azza wa Jal to stand in His court. And even if there was no other wisdom and hikmah to it, but just the command of Allah Azza wa Jal, and that the fact that it was the beautiful sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, and the fact that Akka sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam said that the one who loved my sunnah loved me, and the one who loved me will be with me in Jannah. Just that was enough to take you from the comfort of your chair after a long day and stand you in the masjid in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal, prostrating to Him and pleasing Him and seeking His pleasure and seeking forgiveness from Him. The Taraweeh prayer really is something special. It is your secret conversation with your Creator. It was an amazing process of cleansing. The Quran is being recited with all its glory and all its awe, and you were stood there listening to it, the words flowing through your ears and through your mind. And some people say that concentration was difficult, but we made it difficult because our mind was focused on other things. Perhaps if we could imagine that we were stood in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal, and Allah Azza wa Jal was watching me. The purpose of this amazing act of worship was to build inside you the love for prayer. The purpose of this amazing act of worship was to instill in you the steadfastness to prostrate in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal. If you have somebody who runs, and if he was training for 100 meters, when he reached 100 meters, he would get tired. This month of Ramadan was here to make sure that we protected our 5 salah, but to train us in a beautiful way. And a lot of people struggle with Isha because it's long outside Ramadan. To train us to imagine that we are preparing for a race. Although we'll need to run 100 meters, let's train to run 500 meters, 400 meters. And once we train to do that, outside Ramadan al-Mubarak, the Isha prayer will become easy. There were so many beautiful hikmats and wisdoms in this Taraweeh Salah. Apart from its own blessings, it was training for us in prostrating in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal, in humbling ourselves in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal, in shaking off and throwing away these negligent, heedless veils, and to defeat the shaitan and to fight him and stand in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal. This month of Ramadan al-Mubarak brought this great gift of Taraweeh to us so that we would fall in love with prayer. So we would fall in love with the Quran. We would fall in love with the Rahman. We would fall in love with the words of the Quran. We would enjoy the company of Allah Azza wa Jal. We would enjoy knowing that my Lord is watching me. We would enjoy the fact that we are stood in the house of Allah, in the month of Allah, prostrating in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal. This Taraweeh was something special. Unfortunate to those who cannot get to the masajid to take this beautiful time, to take the blessings and the treasures and the enjoyment of this Taraweeh prayer. Think about the day of judgment. Think about the day of accountability. And think about how deeds will be presented on the scales. And then imagine when your secret communication, your Taraweeh prayers, your humble nawafil are presented in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal and placed on the balance. Can you imagine how much these would weigh in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal on that day when you're standing there after a long day in the month of Ramadan, just for the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal, listening to the Quran and crying in His court. Subhanallah, this was a priceless meeting in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal. This was truly a great gift, truly a great secret. It was instilling in us the love of namaz, the love of salah, the love of the Quran, and the love of Islam. And those who were unfortunate enough to be too lazy or idle or had overeaten at the time of Iftar that they couldn't get to the masajid, Allah Azza wa Jal didn't need your prayer and doesn't need your prayer. You need your prayer. We need to prostrate ourselves in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal because we need those prostrations and that humbleness and sincerity in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal in this world and in the grave and in the hereafter. This was a beautiful form of ibadat. It was the pinnacle of worship, namaz. Allah, Allah. It was your time to show that, Ya Allah, in this blessed month, I am prepared to go that further act. I am prepared to travel in your path. I am prepared to fulfill your command. I am prepared, even after a long day of fasting, having just eaten and my body feeling tired, I am prepared to stand at night in the prayers, pleasing you, because your beloved Habib sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam told me that you are pleased by this. and you forgive the one who stands in your court, and you bless the one who stands in your court. Your beloved Habib sallallahu alayhi wasallam told me that on the nights of Ramadan, you in your own way that is benefiting your majesty and your greatness, I am standing in Taraweeh prayer and I am asking for forgiveness and I am asking for everything I need. This Taraweeh was the true test of the believer. It was there to separate the men from the boys. It was there to really see how much love of Allah Azza wa Jal and His beloved Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam we had. After a long day fasting, after just Iftar and a short gap in between, we are back in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal, and we are prostrating and we are listening to the glorious Quran. Allah, Allah, Allah. This Taraweeh was there to separate the best of the best. This was for the special people of Allah Azza wa Jal. Those who didn't make it to the mosque were unfortunate. Maybe their sins came in the way, because Allah Azza wa Jal did not consider them worthy enough, even in the month of Ramadan al-Mubarak, to stand in His court. But those who were fortunate, those who were good, and those who protected themselves from sin with the fazl of Allah Azza wa Jal, with the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal, with the help of Allah Azza wa Jal, opened their fast and ran straight to the masjid. Why? Because this act was pleasing their Lord. This was a special worship for special people. The Quran speaks of the status of those who stand in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal at night. The Quran speaks of the great achievements of those who prostrate in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal at night. Look at the enjoyment that these people gain from the Quran. They listen to the beautiful recitation, and to make their recitation, they're listening to the recitation of the Quran more pleasurable. They spend time during the day reading those ayats of the Quran, reading the translation from Kanzul Iman, reading the tafsir from Siratul Jinan, and then when they stand in Taraweeh, they know what they have read, they can understand some of the meaning, and they can remember what they read in the tafsir, and their eyes start to go, and they cry in the love of Allah Azza wa Jal. They cry at admonition in the Quran, they cry on the ayats of the Quran, and as they're doing this, stood in Taraweeh Salah, the Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal is being showered on them in these blessed nights. My dear Islamic brothers and viewers of Madani Channel, these are golden moments of Ramadan. This time for Taraweeh is wasted if you do not go to the masjid, is wasted watching television. Allah, how unfortunate is that person who after Iftar sits there and watches the television. You waste this time watching television, watching programs, catching up on news. You waste this time browsing the internet, going onto social media, and you waste time, and that hour and a half, the shaitan makes you feel weak, your nafs is holding you back, and makes you feel lazy and neglectful and heedless, and you end up wasting that hour and a half. And yet how privileged are those people who are stood in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal? How privileged are those people who are acting upon the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? How privileged are those who, having spent a long day and not wasting this golden opportunity, and are stood in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal? If you don't make it to the masjid, cry because your destiny didn't have this in it. Cry because you were not considered worthy enough to be called to the court of Allah Azza wa Jal. Cry sincerely in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal. Repent in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal. Clear your mind and try and protect your fast. Try and stay away from sins. And maybe Allah Azza wa Jal will gift you with, firstly, the privilege of attending the masajid, and then with the honor of standing in Taraweeh Salah, and then with the blessings of crying in Salah, and then with the barakat of the Quran and Ramadan. My dear Islamic brothers and viewers of Madani Channel, Taraweeh is something special. Taraweeh was there to train you for the year. Taraweeh was success. It was the last part of that day that you needed to take with both hands. It was the command of Allah Azza wa Jal. It was the beautiful sunnat of His beloved Habib sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. It was one of the bounties of Ramadan. And yet, this love for Ramadan ended at Iftar. And our state is such that not only do we miss Taraweeh, but we miss Isha. Can you imagine the bounties that you miss out on the day of judgment, when you see people with the great rewards they have gained for the Taraweeh Salah, and you look at what you've missed out on, you will feel great shame and great regret. This is a golden opportunity. Let's make sure that at the time of Iftar, we eat in moderation so that it doesn't disturb our Salah. And even that withholding of your hand from the food, with the intention that I do not want it to affect my humbleness and sincerity in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal during the time I'm praying, or I do not want this food to make me so lazy or tired that I cannot stand in Taraweeh prayer. That holding back becomes an act of worship, and you are rewarded for it. So at the time of Iftar, control what you eat. At the time of Iftar, eat the things that are not going to make it difficult for you to stand in Taraweeh prayer. During the day, make preparation for this special occasion, this night worship, this essence of the month of Ramadan, where we stand in congregation for the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal, listening to the glorious Quran. Prepare for it by reading the translation, trying to memorize the translation, and trying to follow the Imam. And even if you lose track because we don't understand Arabic that well, just listen to the glorious Quran and let the words flow through your mind, because this Quran is purification. Even listening to its words purifies the heart and the mind and the soul. This Quran is something amazing. Some brothers ask that, what if you don't understand? First of all, even if you don't understand what is being recited, it is the command of Allah Azza wa Jalla and the sunnah of His beloved Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam for you to stand there. But there is more than that. There is a very beautiful little parable where there was an old man, and he said, he was reciting the Quran, and his grandson came up to him and he said, "Oh grandfather, do you understand what you're reading?" He said, "No." He said, "Well, why are you reading it?" The grandfather was very wise. He said, "Oh grandson of mine, take that basket." It was an old basket that was used to fetch the coal, and it was dirty, and it was covered in muck. He said, "Take it down to the river, fill it up with water, and come back to my house." So off goes this youngster. He went and filled this basket up, filled it up with water, and ran back. When he got back, the grandfather asked, "Where is the water?" He said, "My dear grandfather, this is a basket. It doesn't hold water. The water drained out." He said, "No, go back and try again." So he ran down to the river. He took the water. He ran back as fast as he could. And he said, "Where's the water?" He replied again, "My dear grandfather, I told you this is a basket. It can't hold water." As I ran back, all the water drained out. He said, "Go on, give it one last try." So off he goes, running down, quickly filling the basket with water, and he quickly ran back. And when he came back to the court, he said, "Dear grandfather, I told you that this is a basket. It was never going to hold the water." He said, "I know that, but look at that. Look at it now. When you took it the first time, it was a dirty, filthy basket with all sorts of debris on it. Look at it now." As the youngster looked at the basket, it was shining beautifully and gleaming. He said, "Look, this basket wasn't good enough to hold the water, but the fact that the water passed through it cleansed it and made it beautiful." In exactly the same way, even if we don't understand the Quran is still a mercy for the believer, and it cleanses our soul, our mind, our intellect, everything. Its benefits are physical and spiritual. The Quran-e-Pak will cleanse you. And in the month of Ramadan, it is the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal that those unfortunate people who do not get the opportunity because of their own negligence and heedlessness to read the Quran every day in the days of the year, have the opportunity to stand in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal and listen to the whole of the Quran. What a great opportunity. And it cleanses their mind and their soul, and it cleanses their impurities and cleans them like that basket. This is the amazing Quran. This Taraweeh prayer that we don't think much of is actually something very, very special. It is a very, very special way of helping cleanse our inner soul, having cleansed our mind. It is a purification process that we go through in the month of Ramadan. And when combined with the beautiful Sehri, and when combined with protecting the 5 salahs, and when combined with fasting during the day and reciting through the Pak of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and when combined with protecting your eyes and your ears and your tongue and your hands and your feet, and when combined with dua iftar and iftari, and then standing in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal, it completes that beautiful bouquet that one can present in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal on the day of judgment. And hopefully with this beautiful bouquet of trying, not achieving, but trying in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal in the month of Ramadan, who knows, it could mean our salvation on the day of judgment. My dear Islamic brothers and viewers of Madani Channel, this month of Ramadan is truly special. This month of Ramadan is truly brilliant. This month of Ramadan is truly magnificent. But it is only brilliant and magnificent and tremendous if you make it that. If you ignore the rights of Ramadan and treat it like any other month, you will not gain the blessings. But if you convince yourself that in this month, I am going to please my Creator come what may, if you convince yourself that nothing else matters, the only thing that matters is the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal, and I will not do any act that displeases my Creator, you will be successful. If you stand in Taraweeh Salah with concentration, imagining that you stood in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal on the day of judgment together with the rest of creation in congregation, and you seek forgiveness in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal, truly, this is the magnificence of Ramadan. And the feelings that one gets after completing Taraweeh Salah are amazing. And the month of Ramadan brings with it so much beauty. 11 months of the year, we're doing our own thing. But in this month, we are just running around for one purpose. Rabb Razi ho jaye. Allah Azza wa Jal becomes pleased with us. What a beautiful month. And what a beautiful form of worship this Taraweeh is. My dear Islamic brothers and viewers of Madani Channel, this is a gift. Concentrating in Salah, humbling yourself in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal can be made easy as well. And let me give you a little tip. If one spends a little bit of time concentrating and learning your namaz properly and learning the translation of your namaz, you can really concentrate. If you know what the words you are reciting mean, it helps you in your concentration. If you know what you are saying and you know that this is truly something amazing, it will increase your concentration. Let me share with you this. When one reads Thana, Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, did you know that this was the translation? Glory be to you, O Allah, and all praises are due unto you, and blessed is your name, and high is your majesty, and none is worthy of worship but you. Subhanallah. Now imagine knowing that translation when you are reciting Thana, Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. When you're reciting that, knowing and having this in mind, you will be able to concentrate. Can you imagine when you're reciting A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, knowing that you're saying, I seek Allah's protection from Satan who is cursed. Knowing that when you're reciting Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, you are saying, in Allah's name, who is the most kind, most merciful, knowing that when you're reciting Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, you are saying all praise be to Allah Azza wa Jal, the Lord of the worlds. When you learn the translation, my dear Islamic brothers and viewers of Madani Channel, it will help you concentrate in namaz. It will help you humble in namaz. It will make you sincere in your prayers, and it will increase the enjoyment you get out of namaz. This wasn't a burden. This namaz was actually there for the pleasure that you were going to gain from it. You were seeking the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal, but in it lay your pleasure if you did it properly, your enjoyment, the fulfillment of your desires. This is why it was described as the Mi'raj of the Mu'min. This was your heights of achievement. Why? Because it was your closeness to Allah Azza wa Jal. But we just treated it like a ritual. We go to namaz, we go to Taraweeh, and then we come back and we've ticked the box, we've done it. No. If you change your attitude towards this ibadat, you will reap the countless rewards of it, not only physically, but also spiritually. And if you start to learn the translation and start to stand in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal humbly, then you will gain great rewards. My dear Islamic brothers and viewers of Madani Channel, this month of Ramadan al-Mubarak gave us the gift of Taraweeh. Do not belittle it. Do not think it's just a quick prayer, but take it with both hands. We heard in the last episode how important this salah was, how important it was to protect the fara'is, and how our scholars and our Sahaba Ikram, the great stars of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, and the great companions of Aka Kareem sallallahu alayhi wasallam, how they valued the nafil salah, how they valued the sunnats of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. We learnt the value of this salah in the court of Allah Azza wa Jal. Taraweeh is a special gift of Ramadan. Take it with both hands and try and maximize the reward we gain. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us the khushu' al-khuzu, the humbleness, the sincerity, and the true enjoyment of the Taraweeh Salah and listening to this glorious Quran and the message of Allah Azza wa Jal standing in His court. Ameen. Bijahin Nabil Ameen. Sallallahu alayhi wasallam.
Every moment, every breath, we thank Allah. The blessings of Ramadan, the blessings of Ramadan, the blessings of Ramadan, the blessings of Ramadan.